Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. And well, the big news obviously is Bob Iger is back as CEO for the Walt Disney Company. And you know what that means? The stock surged way the hell up after the announcement. And yes, the stock actually surged as of the recording of this video. But the point of this video is not about the stock price going up, because I knew that was inevitable. The point of this video is basically that Bob Iger is not going to save Disney, no matter how badly Disney fanboys or investors even think about. And I wrote down 5 talking points that I want to go over. I know every video I've made recently has always had 5 talking points. But anyway, let's get into the first one. And that is Bob Iger's strategy for Disney, if you remember, was growth via acquisition. We are not that far removed from when Disney almost had to close their doors for good, and that was toward the tail end of the Michael Eisner era, right? So what was the first big thing that Bob Iger did as CEO of Disney? He bought out Pixar in 2006. He then bought out Marvel in 2009, and then he bought Lucasfilm in 2012, because, well, why create the new Star Wars with regard to John Carter? You know, why create the new Star Wars when you could just buy Star Wars? You know, why try to create something for the boys market? Because Disney had the girls market pretty much locked down with the Disney princesses. You know, so why try to make something for the boys market when you could just buy Pixar and Marvel, who already had the boys market locked down? You know, Bob Iger didn't create anything under his tenure at Disney. Right, it was always, you know, acquire, or do shitty remake after shitty remake. That was the Bob Iger era of Disney. And the second talking point I want to come to, speaking of the MCU, is that MCU burnout is real. I did touch on this a little bit in my video on why the MCU is dying, but this article from Variety had not come out yet, and I'm not going to read the whole thing word for word. It's Marvel fans showing franchise fatigue, while DC fans more likely to prefer single superhero over universe, new fandom study finds. And it's just this first sentence right here. Over 1/3 of Marvel fans feel fatigued from the constant stream of content served in theaters and on Disney Plus this year, according to a new study released on Thursday by the fan platform Fandom. Right? So the MCU burnout, that did not start under the Bob Chapek era for everyone out there. That all started under the Bob Iger era, right? The MCU now is in the post-Endgame, right? Right, for most people, Endgame was the definitive conclusion to the MCU. You know, no matter who came in to replace Bob Iger, you're not going to take away that circumstance from the MCU, is that Avengers Endgame, to the vast majority of people, like I said, was the definitive ending to the MCU. Where do you go from here? Well, who knows, and who cares if you're Bob Iger, because you're gonna take off running. And the third topic I want to talk about is the fact that Andor's audience demand is the lowest of all Star Wars shows, according to Parrot Analytics. The article coming from Screen Rant, October of 2022. Where was it? Okay. Okay. Instead of just a bunch of dead air, I'm going to try to find exactly where the paragraph is, because I can't remember it. So it's going to probably take me 2 minutes, and I'm going to come back within literally about 2 milliseconds for you guys. All right, I found it. I'm the biggest idiot on the planet, because I was looking at it the whole time. But anyway, okay, here we go. Back to, Andor being the lowest fan demand of any Star Wars show. Here it is. Although Disney has found overall success with its recent Star Wars shows, a new study from Parrot Analytics, as shared by the firm's industry strategist Brandon Katz on Twitter, shows that Andor's audience demand remains relatively low. Using a proprietary system to calculate audience demand that takes into account social media posts, blogs, search traffic, and more, the study reveals that Andor ranks significantly below all other Star Wars shows. The Mandalorian Season 1 saw the highest peaks of demand overall. So again, you're looking at Andor. Andor's demand is in the toilet. That didn't start in the Bob Chapek era. Remember, Bob Iger wanted a new Star Wars movie to come out in 2015, and he wanted yearly movie releases. Well, the problem is you release enough crap. What's bound to happen? What's bound to happen is the audience is going to burn out if you release far too much crap. Which again, this all goes back to the Bob Iger era. It didn't matter what the fuck Bob Chapek did. You know, if the quality was bad before, the old adage goes, you can put lipstick on a pig, but at the end of the day, it's still a pig, right? It doesn't matter if Andor is the best Star Wars show ever made if nobody gives a damn, right? If nobody's watching it or talking about it. I even touched on this in my more recent video on why Andor isn't connecting with the with casual Star Wars fans. Is this article from IndieWire? You know, where is Andor's massive audience? Blame Disney for too many bad Star Wars stories. And we got the quote right here from Tony Gilroy. Quote, I think I was surprised the Andor showrunner said in a recent interview with Variety. I thought the show would have this gigantic instantaneous audience that would just be everywhere, but that it would take forever for non-Star Wars people or critics or my cohort of friends to get involved in the show. The opposite happened. We ended up with all this critical praise, all this deep appreciation and understanding from a really surprising number of sources, and we're chasing the audience. So what's Bob Iger going to do to get audience demand back up for a new Star Wars show when all of the problems with Star Wars, you know, he wanted Episode 7 to come out in 2015, and he wanted yearly movie releases. How's he going to fix the audience demand when the problem started under the Bob Iger era? You know, people do forget about that. The fourth talking point is the fact that, well, Bob Iger insanely overpaid for 20th Century Fox and their assets, right? I'm not going to read this article word for word, but just the headline. Disney closes $71.3 billion, and yes, that's billion with a B, $71.3 billion Fox deal, creating global content powerhouse. Now, to put this into perspective, if I'm remembering correctly, Disney back in 2018 put in a bid to buy out Fox because the Murdochs wanted out of the content business entirely. So Disney put in a bid to buy out 20th Century Fox, and I think they put down $54 billion initially, and then it was Comcast that came along and made their own bid and went, okay, our bid is going to be, we'll pay you $54 billion in pure cash. Right? So for those that don't understand how corporate buyouts work, okay, so you see the headline of Disney closes $71.3 billion deal to acquire 20th Century Fox. That $71.3 billion is not all in cash. Some of it is in cash, and the Murdochs can choose how much of that they want in cash, and the rest of it comes in stock options. So Comcast comes along and offers a pure cash offer of $54 billion. And the Murdochs can do whatever the hell they want with that $54 billion cash offer. If they wanted to buy Disney stock with it, they could have bought Disney stock with it. Then Disney obviously countered with the $71.3 billion deal. And again, to put that back into perspective, at the time Bob Iger and Disney made that bid, Disney had a market cap of $93 billion. So a $71.3 billion deal, yeah, Bob Iger essentially bet the farm on the Fox acquisition and whether or not it would work. And of course, all of the Marvel fanboys were cheering, "Yay, the X-Men are coming home. You don't understand. This is so good because the X-Men are coming back home." When honestly, ask yourselves this question: what the fuck has Disney done with Fox's library at this point? You know, I know that they just made a new Predator movie with Prey, but still, like, honestly, ask yourself, what are they doing with 20th Century Fox's backlog? they're not really doing anything with it. So yeah, okay, they spent over $70 billion to acquire this 100-year-old studio, and the only thing that they've done with it is they've made some of the content available on Hulu, but because of deals with other companies, not all of the movies and shows can appear on that, so they have to go to competing services. Again, ask the question, what the hell is Disney doing with the Fox library? Are they actually adding to it? Or did they just want more content for their streaming services? Well, if all they wanted was just more content for their streaming services, they didn't need to spend $70 billion fucking dollars to do that. Are we really that much closer to another Alien movie getting made? I know there's big talk about Noah Hawley's Alien FX series, but I haven't heard much regarding that in recent times. Ridley Scott's Alien Covenant sequel is all but dead, which is a real shame for me, because I actually liked Alien Covenant. But still, yeah. Honestly, ask yourself, what has Disney done with the Fox deal? So yeah, okay, Disney makes this $71.3 billion deal, and then Bob Iger gets the fuck out of Dodge, essentially leaving Disney and Bob Chapek holding the bag. So now all of a sudden, Disney is losing all of this money. If I'm not mistaken, I think they lost somewhere around $1.5 billion under Bob Chapek. But it's unfair to put all of the blame on Bob Chapek when all of this is going back to Bob Iger's strategy of growth via acquisition. Right? Bob Iger was a hungry hippo in acquiring Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and 20th Century Fox. 20th Century Fox being the biggest deal at, $71.3 billion. Basically, you could really make the argument that Bob Chapek was the fall guy for all intents and purposes, right? Bob Iger comes in, spends a shit ton of money, then leaves the minute that the bill comes due. Bring in the new guy, which is Bob Chapek. Bob Chapek now has to start paying for all of these acquisitions over the last 15 years. Bob Chapek can't do it. So what happens? Bob Chapek gets ousted. Bob Iger comes back. Stock price soars yet again, but again, like with any other overcorrection, it tends to normalize itself out. So again, what the hell is Bob Iger going to do? Going back to the beginning topic of this video, what's Bob Iger going to do as CEO of Disney? Because the fifth and final talking point that I want to bring up is actually a more recent article from The Hollywood Reporter, and that is fear for your mega mergers. The Justice Department is finally taking action. Paramount's block sale of Simon & Schuster marks an early win for an emboldened DOJ's antitrust enforcement, while a reported renewed look at Live Nation could be a worrying sign for media chiefs playing a scale game. On October 31st, the Department of Justice Antitrust Division landed a major victory when a federal judge blocked Penguin Random House's $2.175 billion bid to buy rival Simon & Schuster from Paramount Global. After legal wrangling in a trial closely monitored by Hollywood, U.S. District Judge Florence Pan found that combining two of the world's largest book publishers would hurt competition for best-selling books. Quote, "The government has presented a compelling case that predicts a substantial harm to competition as a result of the proposed merger," Pan wrote. "The post-merger concentration of the relevant market would be concerningly high. The merged entity would have a 49% market share, more than twice that of its closest competitor. If I'm not mistaken, I think after the Disney-Fox merger, I think Disney's market share rose to like 40 to 45%. If I'm remembering correctly. But anyway, getting back to this. The ruling marks a triumph for a rejuvenated DOJ antitrust division after decades of lax enforcement, and a troubling sign for Hollywood moguls contemplating mergers. Quote, "Anybody who is looking to do sizable M&As, that's mergers and acquisitions, in the media sector where you're going to lose a player should be concerned. After this, the head of a mid-major studio, speaking under the condition of anonymity, tells The Hollywood Reporter. The case brought by the government contended the merger would suppress competition to acquire the publishing rights to quote-unquote anticipated top-selling books. Prosecutors advanced the theory that the deal will harm authors by giving the newly merged entity, quote, outsized influence over who and what is published and how much they are paid for their work. The suit represented regulators' bid to crack down on I'm just going to say monopolies. I think it's a typo. The suit represented regulators' bid to crack down on so-called monopolies, a dynamic in which a buyer will, with outsized market power can purchase labor and goods at prices under market value. I think it's monopsonies. I think the term that they're trying to go for is monopsonies, but I could be wrong. Again, guys, I think it's a typo in the article. With the ruling under its belt, the government will likely be emboldened to bring more cases revolving around harm to workers. Legal observers say, quote, they'll be looking for potential impacts on labor markets in a way that wasn't on the top of their mind in the past, says Benjamin Sirota, a former prosecutor at the DOJ's antitrust division. So now you have the government that's now cracking down on all of these mergers and acquisitions. And remember, going back to my very first talking point, Bob Iger's entire strategy of growth for Disney was just acquire everything, right? Acquire Pixar, acquire Marvel, acquire Lucasfilm, acquire 20th Century Fox. So the odds of him doing another successful merger or a merger and acquisition, that's M&A, the odds of him doing another successful merger and acquisition without stepping on the toes of regulators at this point is pretty slim to none. Because one could argue that their acquisition of 20th Century Fox, with Disney's acquisition of 20th Century Fox, they have stepped on a proverbial landmine. The fact that now Hollywood went down from, 6 major studios? You had MGM, Paramount, Universal, Disney, Lionsgate, Fox. Yeah, so Hollywood went down from 6 major studios down to 5 after the Disney acquisition of 20th Century Fox. Again, what the hell is Bob Iger going to do? His entire strategy is growth via acquisition. Just acquire like a hungry hippo. But now you can't acquire like a hungry hippo. So what's Bob Iger gonna do? I know I've gone on for quite a while. So I'm gonna go ahead and end off the video with this. Disney is clearly desperate at this point. Like I said, I think under Bob Chapek, Disney lost, I think, $1.5 billion. But you could make the argument that that was all from the Bob Iger era, in that, the problem with the growth via acquisition strategy, the problem with growing via acquisition is the fact that eventually the bill is going to come due. Bob Iger, I'll give that man all the credit in the world. He was smart enough to get out when he did. He got out of the CEO position before the bill came due, and then Bob Chapek was put into that role. All of a sudden, now it's time to pay the piper. You got to pay for all of these acquisitions that your predecessor made, starting 15 years prior. Disney loses a whole bunch of money. Bob Iger now has an easy way to get back in, but unless if he does something like I said, what are the odds that he's going to be able to do another successful merger and acquisition without stepping on the toes of the regulators? It could happen, but it's very slim to none. So again, what's Disney going to do 3 months from now once the overcorrection has been corrected, once it's been normalized? That is something that we are going to have to wait and see. But yes, Bob Iger is not going to save the Walt Disney Corporation. I really hate to break this to you. And I'm going to go ahead and end this video right here because I already know I went way longer than I probably needed to. So if you guys stuck around this long, which probably just a few of you, if you guys stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following along, I'm terrible at ending these videos, so I will just see you guys next time.